This is the programme the Scientologists didn't want you to see. They've done all they can to stop it.
Why? Because the big story has secretly filmed inside the cult to reveal its bizarre mind control techniques. This man is talking to an ashtray. And this man is supposed to be teaching communication skills. Tonight, as worldwide concern mounts over cults, we go inside one of the biggest in Britain. Prompted by recent cases involving Scientologists, we began to investigate what goes on inside these seemingly harmless little shops that are in high streets all over Britain. The results of our inquiry are disturbing. They're reinforced this week by a new report from independent American cult experts who've also come up with new evidence about Scientology.
Of all the cult groups we've studied for the last 2 decades now, Scientology has shown itself consistently to be the most effective in terms of its recruiting, and more importantly, potentially the most damaging in terms of its effects on its members.
So is Scientology a harmless fringe religion, or is it a sinister sect that controls the minds of its members? To find out, the big story has sent an undercover reporter inside the organisation. But first, a military intelligence consultant and some former Scientologists drilled big story reporter Ali Davis in how to pass Scientology's security checks.
And then you explain it in your own words, okay? Are you a journalist? What does this question mean to you?
It means, do I work in journalism?
Just a little bit of movement there still on that. When I asked you that question, just not much, but just a little bit. Let's just ask it you again so you feel a bit more comfortable. I'll check this question with you. Are you a journalist?
No.
Ali is learning to handle the E-meter, a primitive lie detector.
That question again. Are you a journalist?
No.
Good.
She'll frequently encounter security checks like this once inside Scientology. Ali sets off for Poole in Dorset, home of one of Scientology's most successful missions. Some of Ali's experiences were captured by her secret camera. Others we have reconstructed from the notes she made immediately afterwards. On Poole High Street, she's approached within minutes by a young man with a clipboard.
Right, I'm a little off that head to ask people questions. Look, first question. If you could be anything in life, what would you most like to be?
Explorer.
Claiming to promote a book, the young man persuades Ali to go with him to his office to complete a survey. It's 40 minutes before he admits he works for the Scientologists. This is how most people are recruited into Scientology, but they don't know the true beginnings of this so-called science of the mind. Scientology was created by this man, Lafayette Ron Hubbard, or plain Ron to his followers. From within Hubbard's inner circle, his PR man, Vaughan Young, worked on Ron's chief ambition for 20 years.
Hubbard literally had a plan for world conquest. He actually literally wanted to take over the world. But he had to put it into other terms, and the term he came up with was to clear the planet. And this sounds like a very beneficent action. We're going to clear the planet, which means rid it of its problems. But really, it was more of a case like a Hitler, that he wants to rid the planet of vermin. And the vermin are the people that are stopping him. And these were basically the enemies of Scientology.
Scientologists dismiss as propaganda all criticism of Ron Hubbard, the church, or their beliefs from former members, or apostates as they call them. But there are plenty of independent sources too. Science fiction writer Hubbard created a colourful life history for himself, claiming to be a nuclear physicist, explorer and war hero. This was exposed as the myth it was by Sunday Times journalist Russell Miller.
Ron Hubbard was a charlatan, a liar, a confidence trickster, a thief. He invented his whole life. He invented a career to substantiate himself as a guru for the Church of Scientology.
In 1968, Hubbard was banned from Britain and took to the high seas.
mostly young followers became the elite core of Scientology, the C organization.
Do you ever think that you might be quite mad?
Oh, yes. The one man in the world who never believes he's mad is a madman.
Hubbard's organization fought back against bans and adverse publicity worldwide to become a multi-million-dollar empire controlling a myriad of interlocking companies. Hubbard left $650 million when he died in 1986. Scientology then passed to a new master, David Miscavige. For 5 months, Miscavige's private office was managed by Vaughan Young's wife, Stacy.
His viciousness and his cruelty to staff was unlike anything I had ever experienced in my life. He wanted me to carry out a lot of his vindictive orders. He just loved to degrade the staff. He got a kick out of it. He thought it was funny. Anybody who didn't think it was funny, like I didn't, was very suspect.
Back in Poole, Ali agreed to complete a personality test at home for the Scientologists. This is their standard recruiting technique. She planned to drop it off at the centre and return the next day for her results, so she wasn't wearing her secret camera gear. But the Scientologists were determined she should wait. After more than an hour's wait, she was eventually ushered in to see Debbie, the registrar.
When I was in Debbie's office the first night, I spoke about a relationship breakup, and she really dug into that. She made me actually feel really bad about that, although I actually I'm completely over it. She then went through the personality test. She showed me all these things that were wrong with me, that I had bad communication skills, that I had negative attitude, things that really I don't have in real life, that she made out that I had.
This grinding down of Ali's confidence went on for an hour, until Ali paid £40 for help that Debbie said she needed. Before Ali went undercover, Dr. Brian Tully, a leading consultant clinical and forensic psychologist, had already given her a properly validated personality test.
Ready to go. I'd like you to start the test now, and I'll come back in about 35 minutes.
Okay, thanks.
Dr. Tully's findings were rather different to those of the Scientologists.
As far as one can understand this form, they're more or less saying that she has some desirable qualities, but she has a whole range of undesirable and poor communication skills. Now, that's just not true. On a scientifically validated test, we find that actually she's a very warm person. She likes to get involved with people at a very early stage. She's emotionally stable. She's open to new experience and interests.
Hello, Tully.
Ali embarks on a communications course costing £50, designed to remedy her supposed lack of communication and relationship skills. These are a series of bizarre exercises. Her partner recites a series of numbers. When he moves on to letters, she must persuade him to go back to numbers.
Oh, can you go back to the numbers again? I was just getting interested in those. And then the numbers were really interesting. Thanks, yeah.
In another corner of the room, a man is learning how to control an ashtray by telling it to stand up and sit down. Now Ali's partner pretends to be a child who has wet his pants.
I picked them.
Ali must respond appropriately.
You don't have to be ashamed about that. Lots of kids do that when they first come to school. Yeah, 34. What did I say? Just say the number.
There are also several kids doing communication courses, presumably the children of staff and other members.
7... Actually, 7 should be...
We've reconstructed another training routine from the notes Ali made immediately afterwards. She had to stare fixedly into someone's eyes for over an hour. She even found herself hallucinating.
The staring routines were supposed to make you feel comfortable being with other people, just looking at them. The more you looked at someone, sometimes they changed shape, they grew scales, became like a lizard, or changed from negatives to positives. It was a really strange experience.
Fencing contractor Gary Fry gave the Scientologists £21,000 under the influence of these staring routines.
I actually stared into somebody's eyes for an hour and a half,
just continually. And straight afterwards I was taken upstairs to buy more courses, and I can remember just handing over, well, actually signed a piece of blank paper with my initials, and then gave them, they typed a letter of authority in around it, and I gave them my building society book, and they just went and drew out what they wanted.
When I count from 1 to 7, your eyes will close. You will remain aware of everything which goes on. You will be able to remember everything that happens here. You can pull yourself out of anything which you get into if you don't like it. Do you understand?
Yes.
Good. 1, 2,
Another technique
3,
is what the Scientologists
4,
call auditing.
5, 6, 7. Locate an incident that you feel you can comfortably face. Go to the beginning of that incident.
I'm in my boyfriend's flat, and we're having a huge argument. I've seen him on the street with another girl, and I've asked him about it, and he hasn't denied it. And I've threatened to leave, and he just says, "Okay, go." So I grab my things and walk out the door.
Good. Go back to the beginning.
Ali is required to go over and over a traumatic event in her past.
To a feeling at the time.
I threatened to leave. I just said, I'm going to go then. And he said, "Fine, go. I don't really care if I never see you again." So I just walked out.
Good. Go back to the beginning and go over it again. Pay close
At the end of the session, Ali felt euphoric.
I got quite upset at points, that quite emotional, and I even cried during it. And so after the session I felt on a real high. I felt like I'd been released from something.
In Scientology, as in many of the cults, when they are shutting down the mind systematically, when they're shutting down emotions systematically, people will experience a kind of ecstasy by default, as we call it. There'll be a release of some kind of a pressure, and they'll feel this as a psychological high.